In general, people have a tendency to describe every single year as quote-unquote the worst year ever, no matter what happens. But 2020 is currently making one hell of a claim to that crown. And even in the fictional world, well, WWE programming has been, let's just say, up and down. As far as the main roster goes, well, Drew McIntyre is WWE Champion, Edge made a grand return at the Royal Rumble, Asuka is killing it, and Daniel Bryan remains a perennial best in the world contender. These people are flying high, but at the other end of the spectrum are these guys, many of whom are currently dangerously close to hitting career lows. Now, for some of them, the blame lies with WWE, but for others, it's completely outside of anyone's control. Either way, they're not exactly on top of the world right now, and 2020 has been a year to forget. I'm Andy for What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 WWE wrestlers who are having a very, very bad 2020. Number 10, Shinsuke Nakamura. The King of Strong Style hasn't been at his electric best in years. Now, that's not saying anything new, but 2020 has brought another slide down the pyramid, with Nakamura pretty much relegated to henchman status after losing the IC title to Braun Strowman back in January. 2 years on from challenging for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania, Shinsuke is now very much just a guy who hangs out with Sami Zayn, Cesaro, and Baron Corbin. He's a sidekick, and that's a shame, although you do get the impression that Nakamura is probably quite happy coasting along in his current form, living that surfer life in Florida and collecting a paycheck. On the air, however, his credibility has never been lower. Number 9, Lana. The ravishing Russian has had a pretty wretched 2020 on screen and off. Behind the scenes, she's no longer on the road with her husband. Now, to be fair, Rusev himself didn't exactly seem upset when he was let go by WWE on Black Wednesday, and it sucks that we even got to this stage in the first place. But I imagine not being able to spend so much time with your significant others sucks just as much. As far as kayfabe goes, well, it looks like Lana might be in the process of being phased out as Bobby Lashley's manager. They teased tension at WrestleMania 36, and now MVP is on the scene. He's the wedge between the two of them, and he's keen to get Ald Robert back to the dominator of old, much to Lana's chagrin. She has always been a good manager, but maybe, just maybe, that latest cuck angle wasn't such a good idea after all. Just an idea. Number 8, AOP. Oh, these poor guys, man. Akam and Razar found a solid role as the heavies in Seth Rollins' army of bellends. Now, they weren't wrestling all that regularly, but they were making TV pretty much every week, which is a significant improvement on where they were. That's a pretty nice little role for these guys, but then March came around and Akam was injured, with reports suggesting that he'd be gone for up to 8 months. Awful for Akam. Well, you'd think maybe, just maybe, WWE would at least keep Razar around on TV, right? I mean, Rollins still needed a heater, didn't he? Wrong! Apparently not. Razar, that poor unlucky sod, was taken off the schedule as well. We're now set for another long, unfortunate layoff for a tandem that once dominated NXT, but has now fallen victim to some truly rotten luck on the main roster. Number 7, Dominik Dijakovic. Where at one point it looked like WWE at least wanted to build Dijakovic up to a similar level as Keith Lee, this is no longer the case, and the North American champion has comfortably left his frequent sparring partner in the dust. Now, Dijakovic is still a player, but not the major player he could have become. And if you aren't convinced that he's having a rotten 2020, well, consider that at the time of recording, he has won just 2 matches since the year began, with the latest of those being a 5-minute win over Killian Dane back in February. NXT is stacked, and yes, not everyone can be pushed at once. But while Dijakovic is proof of that, it's a real shame to see a man of his talents sitting on such a bad losing record. Number 6, Rhea Ripley. Like Asuka before her, tapping out to Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania didn't need to be a death sentence for Rhea Ripley, who could have comfortably rebounded had she been given the right follow-up to restore her aura, restore her credibility, and of course, her sheer badassery. So it's a shame then that WWE decided the best reaction for the hard-hitting nightmare was to have her literally crying in the corner on the very next episode of NXT, completely undermining everything that got her over in the first place. Now, Ripley is no lost cause, and NXT will get her back on track eventually, but even before WrestleMania, 2020 hadn't been kind to her at all, as WWE transformed her character from a unique, confident bruiser to a generic happy-to-be-here babyface champion. She really needs a do-over, so let's hope she gets one. Number 5. Robert Roode. This is another one of those entrants where the blame isn't entirely on WWE, as much of the problems that have befallen Roode have nothing to do with them. Well, they are still at least partly culpable for making him and Dolph Ziggler look like bit parters in the entirely too long feud between Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns. But on a personal level, Roode has had a stinker. He returned from a wellness policy suspension to become a low-tier tag wrestler and get farted out by Brock Lesnar in the Royal Rumble. Then, for a few weeks, he circled the drain, before the global health crisis came along, kicked his travelling plans in the ass, and prevented him from making tapings. It's a terrible state of purgatory, and not so glorious for the former Glorious One, who could be on the shelf for the foreseeable future. Number 4. Mojo Rawley. Mojo Rawley has had a year of false dawns. It began when Riddick Moss was introduced as his offensive lineman, hinting at a powerful partnership around the 24/7 title scene, until Moss turned on Mojo 2 weeks later, took the belt, and left his former partner in the dust. Then Rob Gronkowski showed up. Great, Mojo must have thought. My best friend is here, and he's a huge star. This could be really good for me. And it was, with Rawley returning to his old fun-loving character and getting back on TV until Gronk took the 24/7 title and buggered off back to the NFL. So at the moment, it's probably best that Mojo goes back to painting his face blue and talking into a mirror. At the moment, things aren't looking too good. Number 3. Shorty G. 2019 was rank rotten for the former Chad Gable, particularly towards the end, but 2020 somehow has been even worse. Let's take a look at his record. Number 1, he hasn't been on TV since mid-February. Number 2, he has just one win to his name, one win, and that was over Dash Wilder. And number 3, the stupid idiots still haven't even changed his bloody name yet. He is still called Shorty G. And I think that kind of says it all, right? I mean, do you really need me to explain this one any further? Didn't think so. Number 2, Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe is cursed. I mean, curses aren't real, and such nonsense is rightly confined to the realm of fiction and nightmare, but fans of the Samoan submission machine might argue otherwise. It happens every single year, with depressing predictability. WrestleMania season comes around, and Samoa Joe gets injured. Joe only returned from injury in late 2019, turning babyface on the last Raw of the year by coming to the aid of Kevin Owens. Owens and Joe formed an alliance of sorts, standing toe-to-toe with Seth Rollins and his army of bellends. And it looked very much like a WrestleMania program was in the cards, before the curse of Samoa Joe struck once more, and the plans were put down the toilet. First came the suspension. On February 24th, Joe was hit with a wellness policy violation that took him out for 30 days. This was followed by yet another injury. This one sustained while filming, of all things, a commercial. Now, getting injured while wrestling isn't unusual, of course. It's to be expected, if anything. But in a commercial, that's just plain old bad luck. And another WrestleMania was missed as the Joe Jinx reared its ugly head 2020 style. Now Samoa Joe is back on commentary on Raw and generally doing a great job of it as well. But it's not quite the same as wrestling, is it? And number 1, Kairi Sane. Poor Kairi Sane. Poor Kairi Sane. This Kabuki warrior is the latest in a long line of natural, pure baby faces that WWE, in all their wisdom, decided would be better used as a heel. Now this could all change in the space of a few weeks, as things often do in this promotion, but running into a certain irresistible force did the former Pirate Princess no favours whatsoever. Nia Jax doesn't have the best reputation as it is, but the former Raw Women's Champion has done nothing in her return to inspire any kind of renewed confidence in her in-ring ability. Kairi was the most high-profile victim in 2020 so far, as Jax absent-mindedly buckle-bombed her into the vague direction of the corner, leading to Sane's head snapping back off the bottom turnbuckle. It wasn't pretty, but recklessness never is. This latest setback came just a couple of weeks after Sane and Asuka had lost the women's tag team titles, coming up short against Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss at WrestleMania 36. It was a disappointing end to the reign of the Kabuki Warriors, who had arguably had the best run of any team with the belts in their short history. By all accounts, at best, Kairi Sane's 2020 has been wretched. Now, Asuka just won the Raw Women's title, which means one of two things. Either her and Kairi turn on each other and they feud, and maybe, Sane wins the title, in which case her year would improve immeasurably. Or the other thing could happen and Sane could become typecast as a sidekick. Now, I'd love to feel optimistic about this, but, look at the evidence and you can see how things are trending. So that's our list, but what do you guys think? And can you think of any other WWE wrestlers who are having a rotten 2020? Let us know down in the comments section below. After that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. Then, you can follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE and myself at Andy H. Murray, where you can tell me how wrong I am. Goodbye.